Hey everybody, it is HHN Cultist. I am now back after having such a break for 3 to 4 weeks in my YouTube channel at least. Today I will be covering my reviews of Tooth Fairy, Bride of Frankenstein Lives, and Beetlejuice. Those are the houses that I was very fortunate to experience during the HHN and Hhnlite, whichever term you prefer for it. But this will be my review of those houses. But before I get into that, I would like to say I apologize for the being inactive and all that stuff. I was very busy with school as I am finishing up and graduating this fall. And also I was also doing Petrified Forest as a scare actor, and I had an amazing time during this haunt season, and I might talk a little bit about that towards the end of the video about my experience. Was my second year scare acting at the forest, and I absolutely loved every single moment of it, even though it felt really short, even though there are many days that I did work. But I had an amazing time, and I cannot wait to share my story with you guys. I might also get really creative with this video because I do actually have the first footages of my first initial reactions to houses like Tooth Fairy and Brides. I don't think I actually filmed during the premiere of Beetlejuice on the very last weekend of Halloween, but I will get creative and incorporate those footages that I was not been able to put together due to the fact that I was having too much fun with my friends, Jonathan from Hung Up on Theme Parks, Christy from Orlando Decoded, and Yusef, my co-host from Sounds from the Grave. And so I will be incorporating those footages as we go through each and one of these houses. So the first house I am going to be talking about is Tooth Fairy. And Tooth Fairy was the first house that we got to experience because I have heard so many good things from the team members and the premier annual pass holders, which is tier above preferred, which is what I am. And they had said that Tooth Fairy was really good and gory, and that we should all experience it. So based on that knowledge, that's why we decided that we wanted to do Tooth Fairy for the premiere first. And so Universal did this really weird thing where they were going to let everybody go into the standby line of the houses, and as soon as the standby line was going to be full, they were going to open up the virtual queues so you can queue up for the other house that you were not able to see. So basically what happened is that the minutes that they opened up the queues, everybody ran. And when I mean they ran, especially us. So the jogging that we didn't do on quarantine, we were doing it basically for these houses. So we go into the line of Tooth Fairy, and the first thing that we do notice is the facade. Let me stop there and let me actually talk about the facade. The facade is like a storybook pop-up book, but it's actually very hand-drawn and it moves. So it is basically like this really clever way of incorporating that pop-up book look, and it is so amazing. And it is basically the best facade of this event so far. I feel like that's, in my opinion, it is. I genuinely very much enjoyed the storybook aspect when you come in, and it says what happens when you say no to the Tooth Fairy, and we are introduced to the story of James Westhorn, which is a little kid who has lost his first tooth, milk tooth, and we all know the story that if we give our first tooth to the Tooth Fairy, they give us treats and money, things that they tell us as we were a kid. But in this story, it is very different. If you say no to the Tooth Fairy, they basically come after your entire family. It's absolutely fantastic. So we just got out from Tooth Fairy. I actually liked it.
I liked it a lot.
Yeah. The plexiglass affected the scares a little bit, but I still don't think it takes away from the scare factor. At least that's for me, but I know that for her,
I mean, it helps me a little because I get scared easily.
Yeah.
But I could see why it would take away from the scares. But no, I thought it was still fine.
Yeah, me too. But I actually really enjoy this original house. I think it was very well put together. I'm one of the people in my group of friends that actually pretty much enjoyed this house because it's just the fact that I grew up with a lot of like fairy tales and all this other stuff, and the fact that they can take something so twisted, almost like a Grimm Brothers book, and they just made like this really innocent story that we tell kids very grotesque. I feel like this is the type of house that you want to take your kids to make sure that they actually give you the first tooth so you can reward them with money or treats, so they, tooth fairies, because if you believe in tooth fairies, that works too. I'm not judging. But yeah, I loved the Victorian-esque aesthetic to this house. It is very grotesque. It is also, I feel like it also does feed into the phobia of dentists, because there is a part in the house where you hear like the drilling of the dental parts, and I feel like there was supposed to be a scare actor in that area that kind of represented like a type of dentist-esque like, thing, because they had like a drilling like those teeth drilling tools that was going that annoying like sound that we all know when they're drilling into our teeth, that kind of thing. And I feel like it does can gross anybody out, and has so many creative scares. I think the most thing that people give this house crap about is the plexiglass. The plexiglass, I agree, they do give away the scares. It is very much a bummer, but honestly, I get scared at anything. So even if I do see where they are, I still get scared. And I don't think it does take away all that much, because mind you that we are experiencing these houses through a pandemic, and it is very unfortunate. And the fact that they were able to grace us with these houses was, especially such a house such as Tooth Fairy, because Tooth Fairy is like that house that's supposed to be like Nightingales, all up in your face, especially with all these grotesque little demons coming at you, coming after for your teeth, as if you were James Westhorn's family. And yeah, so another thing that I will be talking about is the design of the creatures. The design of the creatures is basically fairy tale like Victorian, like I said, but they do reuse the mask from the house Hive, and they attach like different like Victorian-esque wigs, not like super poofy like adult like, but it's like childlike Victorian wigs and all that stuff, and it looks really nice. I think it gives that really nice touch, especially when they have their really raggedy fantasy type outfits, which make them look like little kids. At this point, I'm very convinced that the Tooth Fairy are just other kids that have conformed to become these Tooth Fairies, that those are the kids that said no and they just become like that. If you guys have passed through the houses, you just see like the Tooth Fairy is basically really short. So this is like the type of thing that we love about short people, especially me. When we have the alpha, it is very nice to go at the knees, because tall people do not like when things get under them. So it is that type of scare that is gonna get almost anybody. So I definitely enjoyed this house. I think it is a great house to scare your kids and all this other stuff. And yeah, so another thing, it is the best way I can describe Tooth Fairy, it is if Scary Tales had a baby with Hive. That's basically what it is. And I genuinely did enjoy that concept, and I think it was really great. So Universal team, good job. I am definitely impressed. So I am very hopeful that this house will come back next year, but it is very uncertain, since I feel like it is on that platter of like, let's chop either one of these two original houses off, which is either Tooth Fairy or Bride of Frankenstein Lives, which is the house that I'm going to be talking about next. You belong alive. So we are now going to be talking about the Bride of Frankenstein Lives, which is the other house that was premiered during Hhnlite, or Diet HHN, whatever you want to call it. And the story goes that the faithful night that Bride of Frankenstein has rejected the monster, she decides that she wants to bring him back to life. She transforms into this scientist-esque, kind of like Frankenstein look, but female. So she decides that she wants to bring him back. So what she does is that she goes out hunting for the brides of Dracula to grab their blood to be able to revive Frankenstein, and also grabbing the other parts of the monsters to put him back together. So at the end, they do come back to life, and you see the bride and Frankenstein come up both at the same time as they both roll together as like this amazing Universal monsters couple. So what I gotta say about that house, it is definitely amazing. The set design is very solid, and especially like the facade is very interactive, almost like Scary Tales, where we see the witch flying over you. It is Bride trying to lift that building or a log off of the monster and screaming over him, and it is definitely that kind of facade that really does set the mood for the rest of the house. So the house is definitely very storytelling, where we actually see the story from beginning to end. And this is something that I really much enjoyed about Bride of Frankenstein. As much as there was kind of a story to Tooth Fairy, it was more like, I wish we saw more in Tooth Fairy. In this aspect, I feel like this is where Tooth Fairy like lags a little less detail, is the fact that we just see the Tooth Fairies like attack the family, and James Western ends up in the Fairy Jubilee. So there is not much of a storyline there, but we do see the transition from her mourning over Frankenstein to this transformation of her becoming this mad scientist trying to bring her lover back, and having the assistant, which is my favorite, you mustn't disturb the master. And she is absolutely amazing. And the fact that, and then we see Bride collecting the other brides of Frankenstein, also experimenting on the other experiments to try and basically perfect the resurrection of the monster. And I think it is amazing storytelling from beginning to end. Set design, amazing concept, and a general twist to a concept that was something that I didn't think was ever going to be happening, in a sense. And by that I mean is that Bride of Frankenstein did reject the monster, and the fact that she rejected the monster just seems like, why would she want to revive him after she had rejected them? But I feel like that's something that might be answered right down the line. If, this house does come back and there is somehow an interview that comes up with the HHN people, and so we can explain this concept further. But I feel like it does make sense, because she probably feels sorry that she rejected somebody that could deeply understand her. So this is definitely an amazing house. Believe me, like, if it comes back next year, you will not regret it. And it is just this amazing aura of energy. The scare actors gave it their all, and they delivered a story that could definitely become one of your favorite houses of all time. So we had no idea we were going to get this. So Universal has definitely kept their cool on the hush-hush for the surprise that was going to be waiting for the HHN community or anybody that was willing to celebrate Halloween in the parks. So Universal has finally decided that they were going to actually release Beetlejuice for a weekend. When I mean a weekend. So Universal was actually fortunate enough to have Halloween on a Saturday, so it definitely would have worked out in their favor. The only thing that I am definitely concerned, I certainly did not get the email, and even if I did get the email, I'd probably throw it away, because if it's not really cool deals, sorry, I don't read it, and I just kind of like toss it out. Like, oh, if you're not offering me cool deals, toss it away. But according to other annual pass holders, Universal did say that not to come to the parks on the weekend, because it is going to be very busy, overcrowded for the Halloween weekend. And then that's when they kind of did that hush-hush move of bringing up the Beetlejuice house. So we definitely do see a snippet of the building, as you can see here, and this was released the night before the actual date of the Beetlejuice house. So the Beetlejuice house queues went out quick. And the fact that they had repeatedly gave out cues throughout the day, according to other people on Twitter. But according to a lot of people, also, they didn't get to experience the house. I was extremely fortunate to experience Beetlejuice on Sunday, on November 1st, and it was definitely amazing. So this is what I gotta tell you guys. if Beetlejuice has been up as much as Tooth Fairy and Brides, you guys already know that there are already walkthrough videos on Tooth Fairy and Bride. Beetlejuice is a house that I do not want to spoil. I am going to give you a very vague review, but take my word for it, and many other vloggers that have put their review on Beetlejuice. This is a house that you do not want to miss next year. It is definitely everything that you could have ever hoped for in a Beetlejuice house. It is literally the most breathtaking house that I don't think I've ever seen that much detail, especially for something that had to be toned down due to the situation and the unprecedented times that we are living in. Trust me, you will not want to miss this next year. So, Beetlejuice is definitely a very colorful type house. It is very fun. It is very dynamic, and it's the fact that these scare actors were able to do their job, especially behind plexiglass, that it still delivered the story so well. I will say this, it does not exactly follow an entire story, but we definitely do feel like you are in Beetlejuice's world, and that's all I'm going to leave it at. So I cannot wait for you guys to experience this house next year. It is definitely a quotable house, so hopefully you guys will enjoy it, and I promise you it is everything that we could ever hoped for. And my friends, basically Aaron and Beetlejuice, definitely were crying tears of joy and clapping and enjoying the house because they're hardcore Beetlejuice fans, and many others that we haven't been expecting this house. And I know that this was definitely a kind of a bombarding moment for, Universal for dropping something like this last minute, but it has been extremely hard to get virtual queues if you're not on the app, like right on the dot. And that's something that I wish, honestly. So my little opinion of virtual queues, they are definitely helpful to keep lines low and to get you guys as efficient and through the houses as possible. But for Beetlejuice, like, if you are not on the app, like on it at every second of the time, it is very hard for you to get a virtual queue. You have to be on there, and your fingers have to act fast. So hopefully if we do have virtual queues, take that into consideration next year. But if we don't, that's fine. We go back to express passes. I know that express passes are super expensive, but well, for some people. As for me, I never get express passes, but that's just me. But I feel like virtual queues are helpful, but at the same time, it is very frustrating when it comes to something that is going to go out so quickly, and the limit on there is a little bit iffy. So I feel like that's something that could be improved. But other than that, guys, cannot wait for next year. I cannot wait for you guys to experience Beetlejuice, and it's going to be absolutely amazing. Yeah, that was my review of all the houses, guys. So I know that Beetlejuice was very vague, but I don't want to spoil it for anybody that is coming next year or planning on coming next year. But Tooth Fairy, amazing. Bride of Frankenstein Lives, amazing. And Beetlejuice, amazing. So it is something that I cannot wait to experience at its full potential, maybe next year. Hopefully this crazy time goes by quickly and all that. So before I actually close out, I am going to be talking about a little bit of my Petrified Forest experience. So it is my second year scare acting at Petrified Forest. I loved it, which is why I was so inactive for so long. I have been working for them again as a scare actor. I was a gypsy at the Curious Carnival this year, which is the second trail that you guys go through if you guys have been there this year or have not been there this year. The way that they were doing it by time slots, so it creates social distancing, a lot of pulsing, and once you're inside the line, you go to trail 1, then you go to trail 2 and trail 3. So there's no individual lines for the houses or the trails, I should say. You just kind of go in like a snake pattern, I would like to call it. But yeah, the theme was basically time traveling, and I had so much fun this year. I actually had a really big room to play with. As you guys that have visited me in the trail, I popped out multiple times at the guests, and a lot of social distancing. It was a very fun time. guys, I definitely like this year better than my first year scare acting. I cannot wait to go back. A Petrified Forest is an amazing event here in Florida. If you guys have not, or if you guys are local, I consider that you guys hope that you would consider coming next year. But if not, then if you guys want to take a trip to Florida to experience a Petrified Forest, it's up there for grabs. So I cannot wait to go back next year. So since it is the end of haunt season, I'm going to have to switch gears for at least 2 months. I am going to be transforming this channel into a Christmas review, Christmas maybe reaction videos, that kind of thing. Hopefully some Christmas horror. So I'm going to be calling this temporary channel Krampus Cultists. I am still going to be covering some horror stuff, but if there is some Christmas events that I feel like you guys should check out, I will also be reviewing that and vlogging about that as well. I will be a little bit slow on that, especially since, like I said, I am going to be graduating this fall. So I have my hands a little bit full right now, but I feel like once we go remote in my university, I feel like that will give me more time to work on content. But so yeah, I'm gonna be doing Christmas stuff, and hopefully I want to do some stuff with my co-host Yusef as well. So we're probably gonna be doing some in our Sounds from the Grave podcast YouTube channel. If you guys have not been checking that out, please check us out. We are a podcast talking about all things horror, horror movies, horror haunts. Haunts is already horror. But yeah, so there's a lot of changes going on in this channel. But in January, I'm going to be back to your regular schedule with all Halloween Horror Nights and horror stuff. And I'm just going to be back to being a horror person. But for 2 months, I'm going to be, if you guys are still interested watching, doing some Christmas stuff, I'm going to be trying to make this channel a little bit more fun, more holiday-ish, but I'm still going to incorporate a little bit of horror and hopefully more makeup looks, because I need to make more makeup looks. So if you guys really enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. Please don't forget to subscribe. Of course, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Hhncultist. I also do update there quite regularly rather than my YouTube channel. But hopefully I will be coming out with some more content. Thank you guys for watching, and I will hope to see you guys in the next video, but with more holiday style. See y'all.